Hello, it's Jay. Let's talk about Fctry Smmrs, a memoir of Guy Delisle's summers working as a teenager at the same factory as his father. Delisle was born in 1966 in Quebec, Canada. Now lives in the south of France. He's worked in animation for 10 years and produced several autobiographical novels and travelogues. This being one of his latest 2021 book, at least, well, as released here. This was translated from the French by, I didn't look up these names, Elge Deschner and Rob Aspinall. So at 16, Delisle takes a summer job at the local paper mill, a Quebec City pulp and paper mill on the St. Charles River, where his father, who has divorced his mother and sort of lives on his own, is kind of seems rather estranged from his son, is an engineer with a sort of a white collar office job. Guy, as a 16-year-old, gets hired to work on the floor. So this is very much, doing hard physical labor in a super noisy environment of a pulp and paper mill, where he's wearing earplugs at all times, even though the old timers there, and it's like, who needs the earplugs or whatever. So, cutting, sweeping, moving hundreds of pounds of paper and so this is a sort of a book that is really cunningly structured and divided up. It's divided into the 3 summers that he worked at the mill, where during the fall and the winter he was studying the fine arts, which the working class dudes there, it's like, you're like a son of like one of the engineers here. You should be like getting a doctor, becoming a doctor or lawyer. What the hell are you doing studying fine arts? So we have those 3 sections, and then we have a final couple of little codas at the end, where it's sort of like where he went next, and then another one from much later, which sort of cements the whole very kind of nostalgic look that this is, or it's him as an adult looking back at his younger self and his experiences at the factory. So, and then you get all the kind of the divisions within the story. This is working men versus the managers. There's very much hard divide there. There's a class divide, which is, the managers again, but it's also a class divide between him and the other guys working on the floor. At the beginning, he's very much, you're just a summer worker. You don't really count. You're just, whatever. But there's also his aspirations. He wants to work in animation, and they're like, really, that's a job? Where these guys have much more kind of like, I want to make enough money to buy a decent car or have food, or very much more just sort of immediate concerns that a lot of the fellow guys have there. There's definitely the French and English divide. At one point, he gets shown the controls to particular machinery, and the worker who shows it to him is like very very proudly like, look, you see with that, it's in French. When this mill was first made, it was owned by Canadian English dudes, and everything was in English. But now we're in Quebec. They passed Bill 101. This is all in French now. We actually get that. Now, that said, I know this from kind of the BC. I'm out here in BC. It's like, yeah, all the mills here a lot of them are owned by Americans, and indeed the one that he's working in is again owned by Americans. Canada united in being owned by the United States. That's where the money comes from. But there's that kind of divide, and there's also sort of the divisions in this book of sort of the past of the mill, the present that he's working in, and then it's the future. What's going to happen next? You can kind of feel these divides. You can feel how things are changing. At one point, the logs were the reason why this mill is on the water is because all the logs were cut down and then floated down the river, terribly apparently contaminating the river, but that doesn't happen anymore. It's all recycling, and the actual log pile, when he starts to shrink and shrink and shrink as he goes along. You can see kind of shifting times that way. There's also just, he's very much talking about this story. You very get the strong sense of this is him as an adult looking back at himself, back then. There's also, I think, the kind of maybe a big kind of core thing for this book, a sort of a core thing for this book, is the division between his father and himself. He rarely sees his father at the mill. I think he visits his office like once. His father is very kind of emotionally distanced. When he actually rarely kind of comes to visit him in his apartment, his father will kind of talk at him. And it's only at the very end, when he's sort of walking out the door, where the father will say, "So how are you doing?" It's like that kind of relationship. And while there are those divisions, there's also very much this thing of, what does his father do all day? His father does drawing. It's technical drawing, but he's doing his own kind of his own kind of art, his own kind of interaction with the media, which obviously his son, while not becoming an engineer, became someone who has a style which I've had other books which were very much more kind of loosey-goosey. This is like extremely good book at sort of illustrating like architectural changes, like talking about how the old style of the factory was like this, and that how the new architecture, while they kind of make little nods to it. This was like the early 1900s when it was built, and so it has all this kind of Art Nouveau. I think it's Art Nouveau kind of The architect drew inspiration from a New York's brand of new skyscrapers to give this pulp and paper mill kind of a modern look. And now what people are doing now is, what they've done now is very much more blockish, modern, and utilitarian, and doesn't really meld that greatly with the rest of the old architecture. But it's a functioning mill, so they probably just don't really care that much. But you can see that he himself has kind of, there's kind of kinship there. There's connections there with his father, though it's a book which is very it is a very understated, to the point of maybe feeling a little bit on the distant side. There's no big gushing scenes, because there probably wasn't any big gushing scenes in there. His father wasn't a big emotional guy, and you get the sense that probably Guy is also not someone who is going to broadcast things to the roofs and rend his clothes. He's not that kind of. There's emotions in these carefully drawn, carefully crafted pictures, but it's definitely, it's under a deceptively kind of a simple and still surface there. So, in the end, this is it's a very understated look, again, of a son seeing his father's world sort of from a distance, from time and emotionally. And it's a document of a particular time and place, both for DeLille and for this particular microcosm, which he's so good at. As Guy kind of goes through all the different jobs at the mill, you learn about how paper is made in this book, which is has got its own kind of informative delights. So yeah, it's I enjoyed. I wasn't like completely. It's one of those complicated, diffident father-son relationships where I do feel like I'm a little bit outside of things at the end, but maybe that's kind of accurate to DeLille and his father's actual experience. So that's maybe not surprising. All right, so yeah, that is my review of Fctry Smmrs by Guy DeLille. And I apologize for all my mispronunciations all the way throughout, including Quebec, go back, all that sort of stuff. Ignorant Western Canadian dude here. All right, I will leave you there. I've been Jay. More videos later.